Welcome back to The Explainer. Look, if you've been tracking the absolute tectonic shifts in artificial intelligence, you already know we're standing right on the precipice of something truly historic. I'm talking about the impending 2026 IPOs for the two most important AI labs on the planet, OpenAI and Anthropic. But here's the hook, and this is literally going to define the financial narrative of the entire decade. Neither of these companies is hitting the public markets with a clean, normal corporate structure. No way. They are structural opposites, completely inverted mirrors of each other, built to solve totally different problems. And yet, they are crushing headfirst into the exact same wall. Okay, let's dive into this roadmap and break it all down. First up, we'll look at the AI IPO Paradox. Then, we'll unpack OpenAI's conversion overhang, explore Anthropic's untested trust, take a hard look at their financial backbones, and finally, we'll figure out how to actually price the governance discount.
Section 1. The AI IPO Paradox. Two giants, two untested structures. So we've got these two titans of generative AI, right? And they're gearing up for the public markets on practically the exact same timeline. But despite sharing a ton of the same investors and building very similar products, they are coming at Wall Street from totally opposite directions. OpenAI, as you might remember, started out as a nonprofit, and then they recently converted into a public benefit corporation. Now, Anthropic, and this brilliantly illustrates the contrast, they were actually founded by ex-OpenAI researchers who deliberately designed it as a public benefit corporation from day one, literally from inception, just to avoid OpenAI's exact structural mess. It's the direct structural mirror, the inception path versus the conversion path. But here's the kicker. They are converging on the exact same colossal challenge. How on earth do they defend their totally unconventional governance to Wall Street investors? Because let's be real, public markets historically care about exactly one thing: maximizing shareholder value.
Section 2. OpenAI's conversion overhang. The ghosts of the nonprofit. Because OpenAI kicked things off as a nonprofit and then sort of strapped a for-profit arm onto it later, their upcoming S1 filing is, frankly, going to be haunted by the ghosts of that original charitable trust. Think about the baggage here. They have to lay out this entire messy conversion history for investors, including a staggering $130 billion equity allocation to the OpenAI Foundation. They've got to disclose dismissed litigation from Elon Musk, the very real looming threat of future plaintiffs, ongoing oversight from the California Attorney General, and, oh yeah, potential IRS reviews. Plus, there are these incredibly complex entanglements with Microsoft. I mean, there's reportedly a clause that just voids their entire partnership if artificial general intelligence is achieved, alongside a $38 billion revenue share cap. So investors are absolutely going to demand a steep governance discount here, mostly because they have to place a massive bet that the company's very foundation won't just be legally dismantled by regulators.
Moving on to Section 3, Anthropic's untested trust, the counterfactual shield. Now, Anthropic sits practically just a block away, and they serve as the perfect counterfactual shield. Because they started out as a public benefit corporation, there was never a nonprofit to convert, which means no charitable assets to legally try to transfer. Instead, they protect their AI safety mission through something called the Long-Term Benefit Trust. Now, what's really interesting about this setup is that it's an independent body of 5 financially disinterested trustees who hold a special class of voting stock. And trust me, Wall Street is going to have an absolute field day with that word disinterested. Why? Because it means these 5 trustees hold absolutely zero Anthropic equity. None. They literally cannot make a dime off the share price going up. And their legally binding mandate, it requires them to prioritize safety over your shareholder returns whenever the two happen to conflict. And here is where Wall Street is really going to start to sweat. This trust's power, it escalates. It was established back in September 2023 with just minority board control, but its power actually grows as Anthropic's commercial scale grows. By 2027, this trust is estimated to control a full majority of the board of directors. I mean, just think about the timing of that for a second. That setup concentrates ultimate mission control right over the exact period when public shareholders will be loudly demanding maximum focus on quarterly profits. Which brings us to Section 4, the financial backbone. Why Anthropic burns cleaner. So you might be wondering, if Anthropic's governance is this complicated, why are public investors still climbing over each other to get in? Well, it's because, while the structure definitely causes some headaches, their capital efficiency is an absolute dream. By early April 2026, Anthropic reported a massive $30 billion annualized revenue run rate. But here's the crucial part. Roughly 80% of that revenue comes from the enterprise side, and that includes 8 of the Fortune 10 companies. Unlike OpenAI, which leans super heavily on consumer subscriptions, enterprise revenue is incredibly sticky. It renews, it expands over time, and it carries much, much higher gross margins. Anthropic isn't out there trying to figure out consumer advertising or churn. They're building mission-critical B2B software, and the market loves that.
Let's anchor these abstract concepts in actual billions of dollars, just to put it into perspective. Anthropic's estimated operating burn for 2026 is sitting somewhere between $8 and $12 billion. Meanwhile, OpenAI's projected burn is up at roughly $17 billion. Because of Anthropic's leaner operation and that high-margin enterprise focus we just talked about, consensus models actually have Anthropic hitting operating break-even around 2027 or 2028. OpenAI, they aren't projected to hit that until sometime in the 2030s. That clear, cleaner path to profitability is just incredibly attractive to public markets.
And you can see how this financial strength translates directly into how they've been raising capital in the private markets. Back in February 2026, Anthropic closed their Series G, and they raised a truly stunning $30 billion at a $380 billion post-money valuation. I mean, wow. Led by heavy hitters like GIC and Coatue, this round firmly cemented Anthropic as an absolute financial powerhouse. They are raising the kind of capital that proves, without a doubt, they are more than ready to meet the public markets head-on.
But venture capital? That's really just one piece of the puzzle here. $40 billion. That is the upper limit of the commitments Anthropic secured from Google alone. To train these state-of-the-art AI models, you need almost unimaginable amounts of compute power. And Anthropic has aggressively tied up these staggering hyperscaler commitments just to guarantee their supply. And right alongside Google, we have Amazon, stepping up with an equally staggering commitment of up to $25 billion. Now, a lot of this is actually structured as cloud credits, which effectively converts compute scarcity into enterprise revenue for them. They are aggressively securing infrastructure across the board. They even signed a massive agreement with SpaceX in May 2026 for over 220,000 NVIDIA GPUs and 300 megawatts of capacity. Basically, they are building an absolute war chest of compute before public investors can even ask to audit their unit economics.
All right, final section, Section 5, pricing the governance discount, the ultimate irony.
So we've seen the complex structures, we've seen the massive financials. Now, how does the market actually price all of this? Well, here is the central paradox. The public market is going to punish both OpenAI and Anthropic for their corporate structures, but for completely opposite reasons. Look, markets are pretty used to governance discounts when it comes to founder-controlled companies, like Snap or Lyft. But in those cases, the founders still fundamentally want the stock price to go up. They are economically aligned with the shareholders. Anthropic's mission control setup is fundamentally riskier from an investor's perspective. If their safety mission and profit ever conflict, the trust is legally mandated to subordinate your returns. Let me say that again. They literally do not care if the stock goes up.
So the crucial point is this. Anthropic built its entire corporate structure specifically to avoid OpenAI's messy charitable trust conversion. And honestly, it worked. But, as this quote perfectly nails, they didn't eliminate the governance discount. They just relocated it. They traded OpenAI's charitable trust problem for a massive governance question of their own. The great irony of this whole situation is that Anthropic's greatest protection, that independent trust, is simultaneously its absolutely biggest liability for public investors who, at the end of the day, just want to maximize their returns.
So how will institutional investors actually trade this spread when the bells ring? It really comes down to a perfectly inversely correlated bet. Let's walk through it. If an investor believes that AI mission governance is really just corporate theater, they're going to heavily discount OpenAI, right? Because they'll fear that messy conversion might actually legally unwind. But they won't discount Anthropic much, because they'll assume the so-called toothless trust won't actually step in to hurt their profits. Conversely, if an investor believes this mission governance is actually real, they'll view OpenAI as the safer bet since the conversion is practically done and dusted. But they'll severely discount Anthropic, knowing that the trust will absolutely step in and tank shareholder returns when push comes to shove.
And that leaves us with the ultimate billion-dollar question. As we look toward the biggest IPOs of this entire decade, is AI mission governance actual, meaningful substance, or is it just corporate theater? The public market is about to run a live, multi-hundred-billion-dollar experiment to find out. We are going to watch Wall Street literally price the spread between human safety and corporate profit in real time. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep a close eye on those S1 filings because I promise you the real show is just getting started.